urban gardening cooperative. He gets gardeners to work with homeowners to transform their lawns into regenerative ecosystems, and then they could grow food, or just have like an herb garden or a garden for the wildlife. Lots of options there. But if they do grow food, then if there's excess, then they can sell it by also getting some cooks, some food processors involved, and just create our own little ecosystem of regenerative enterprises. So that's what we're here to do, and working through my regenerative enterprise design workbook. A regenerative enterprise is an organization that is designed to constantly evolve to improve people, planet, and profit. So it's just a good business all around. So we've been working together for several months to develop his business plan, basically. He's been thinking about this for a really long time, and so he knows pretty well what we're doing. We're getting in some of the details, helping him clarify that, and also putting it together here in a way that we can easily share with other people. So these conversations are live on the internet, and if you're watching right now on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, we invite you to participate in the conversation. So there's a chat room on Twitch and YouTube, and there's comments on Facebook that you can just type right in there, and we will see it, and we will respond. If you have any ideas, if you have questions, if you want to get involved, please let us know. This is a community organization. David is in Denver, Colorado. I am in Norman, Oklahoma. He's doing it there, but it could definitely be expanded. It could be replicated. He has a nonprofit that he's doing it with. So if you want to do something like this, you could possibly partner with him. I'm thinking about doing something similar. I might even ask him if I can use his nonprofit at some point. That's a very valuable thing to have. Please get involved. That's what this is all about, is getting more people involved. And so we're just kind of talking through the basics of where to start. So before we dive into that, let's do a little check-in. How are you doing, David?
I am doing great. It's been a little bit cold and miserable here, but and so we're not having a lot of response from gardeners and homeowners right now because nobody's thinking about gardening. Although this is a great time of year to build a deep mulch garden because nature has given us all these fine materials to work with. And we just need to put them in a place, in an arrangement that will facilitate the growth of the microorganisms, the soil microbiome that will produce what our plants need to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Awesome. To kind of catch up the audience on what I'm doing, if you're not aware, I'm finishing my master's degree. So if this seems a little bit unpolished, it's because I have been really busy writing. And as soon as I'm done, which is going to be very soon, you're going to see some changes and some upgrades and more content, more educational content. I'm really excited about all the possibilities, but I need to finish my master's degree first from Gaia University, which is really cool, but I won't get into that right now. Maybe I'll make a video after I finish about that. Okay, cool. Oh, and you can also join my Patreon. You definitely join my Patreon and like and subscribe wherever you're at. Okay. So we have been going through this regenerative enterprise design workbook. We've gotten pretty far. We're almost done. I could upgrade this. Hold on. Yeah, we're through part 7. There's 8 parts. So we're almost done. Let's see. To kind of recap, we made some nice purpose and vision statements. Purpose is to tap into unrealized human and biological potential to produce abundance for our community. Isn't that nice? I won't read all the rest of this, but you can see that on their screen under David there. We described exactly what he's trying to do, which is $100 a month base fee for having someone come help you with your lawn for an hour a week, right? 4 hours a month. And then on top of that, they can get other kinds of packages to do more gardening of various kinds, including like building a greenhouse or having chickens. And we would have all sorts of people working together to do that. and it would be a cooperative. So we're looking at starting a cooperative. And so we talked about the structure of that, what the different roles would be. We actually listed the initial roles. We listed the board roles. David's kind of got this figured out. He knows how to do it. It's good. And then we talked about upholding standards. This is what we talked about last time. We talked about how to kind of measure whether people are doing what they're supposed to do and tracking that. So we talked about having the workers like take photographs and make a report once a month on what they've been doing, and maybe even share that online. Like each worker could have their own webpage and be kind of updating everybody about what they've been up to. And that we would do surveys of the homeowners. And we had left off on this question about testing. So, I mean, David's already been doing some of this. Like, he's already had a couple of different people. How many people have you had be gardeners so far?
We've had 5 people that have actually had clients, and we're down to 1 person right now because various issues that have come up, such as preschool children that need to be taken care of during COVID, and other business opportunities coming up. But to the extent that homeowners and gardeners have gotten together and accomplished something, we have some pretty good feedback saying that this is a valuable service.
Okay, cool. And how many customers, how many homeowners do you think that you've worked with?
We've had interest from 8 different homeowners, and probably a few more than that. And I would say 6 that have actually paid for services and received them and are relatively happy with what's been accomplished so far.
Okay, cool. Let's twist this, because you've already tested it. You've already tested it with real people. So maybe just getting a little more information for me on how that's gone. Like, do you have any kind of metrics, how long they worked with them, what kind of outcomes there were? Can you just tell me a little more?
Okay, well, so our first gardener started probably September or so this time last year.
Okay.
And she had 5 clients at the peak. And most of them were friends or people that she knew through her email list. And she carried about 4 of those clients into this coming September, at which time that she had her daughter, who is 4, I think, and couldn't go back to school because of the COVID, and so she needed to be able to take care of her, and didn't have the other kids at home now to take care of her while she went and did her 4 hours a week for each client. So moving forward from that, then we had a series of events over the summer where we were promoting the Cook and the Gardener program through meetup groups and through our Facebook connections and that sort of thing. And through that process, we brought on another 3 or 4 clients and another 4 or 5 gardeners. Nick and Shannon were a couple who took on 3 different clients, and up until the point where they decided that their other business opportunities were going to be more lucrative for them. They had happy clients and they accomplished some good work. And then we have another couple that took on a homeowner, and there was a miscommunication I mean, I have to take responsibility for that because the homeowner expected them to be doing permaculture design and installation for $100 a month. And they wanted to fulfill that instead of saying, no, this is not what we do for $100 a month. For $100 a month, we will help you cycle the carbon that you're generating on site. Or if you want to bring in carbon, we'll help you convert that into a habitat for soil ecosystem. And so Andre is sort of one of these negative type of people that says, this is never going to work. There's no way that you're going to get a value proposition for people. And so he and Stephanie are off. I don't know exactly what they're doing right now, but they're still interested in our project, but not in being gardeners under these circumstances, under the base program, right? If we were building greenhouses with aquaponic systems in them, Andre, that's his passion. So I think we could get him back involved, but we don't have clients for that yet.
I see. Great. Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So yeah, I mean, what would you say are the lessons learned so far?
The lesson is to be absolutely clear what the value proposition is, what the $100 is paying for. And it's, we need to be upfront with the clients that if you do want a permaculture design and installation, you're talking about thousands of dollars. But if you're willing to use slow and small solutions that are going to allow your landscape to evolve over time,
right?
That's what the $100 is for.
Yeah.
And we have lots of options in terms of the materials that are generated on site, free materials that are in the waste stream that our culture generates. Those things can be brought into site. It should be a partnership between the gardener and the homeowner in terms of a discussion about what part you're going to do, what part am I going to do. And we'll work together to get this be as efficient as possible and accomplish as much as possible within the parameters of 4 hours a month.
What about as far as retaining your gardeners? Is there anything you think you could do differently to keep them around?
So Zana, who is our first gardener, would love to come back, and she's looking at next September when her daughter will be entering school. We have a lady that came on to help us to do some promotional work. So I've got a whole list of gardeners who have responded to the idea of a gig opportunity where they could do this gardening work. So we'll have to see, and hopefully we'll do a better job of providing them with the opportunities they need to make it worthwhile and continue their enthusiasm. But one of the skills we need them to develop is to reach out to their own contacts. And I mean, ideally, I think we discussed this last time, ideally, each gardener would have 20 houses that were all right next to each other. And so they're a group of neighbors agreeing to pay $100 a month for a gardener to do the neighborhood. And then that saves on travel time, and you can coordinate the activities on one site along with another site, and have what's being developed on one site benefit what's being developed on the neighboring sites.
Yeah. So. Yeah. So more marketing and support for the gardeners to do their own marketing.
Right.
Yeah.
So, totally. And we're working on that.
Yep. That sounds good. Okay. Yay. We answered that question. Okay. So yeah, today we're going to dive into impacts. So, I mean, you've got a really impactful organization here. So it's kind of like listing what those impacts are. And yeah, I should have put in the question. Here, what metrics will you use to measure them? And then we're going to brainstorm ideas to improve and hopefully in a way that's kind of fun, those metrics. So yeah, just starting with environmental, like what are some of the environmental impacts. And I think we mentioned this some before. What did we say before? Cycling carbon, about taking photographs, and submitting them monthly. But I think that's the only thing we really named. Yeah, what environmental impacts do you want to kind of like measure, keep track of?
Well, we want to, our goal is to increase the variety of number of species participating in any given space.
Okay.
So we're working with a suburban household lawn. And right now it's bluegrass and bindweed, and in a suburban area with very little additional landscapes, you'll be looking at starlings and English sparrows as your primary bird species, because they're good generalists and they can survive in areas where other birds need a little bit more input.
They can also be mean to other birds.
Well, they can be aggressive.
Yeah.
So as we develop a greater variety of plant species within an area, we're going to be creating habitats for additional insects.
Sure.
And then that is going to be providing food for additional bird species. So perhaps we could do a metric based on, when do the chickadees show up, or the downy woodpeckers, or those sorts of things.
Okay. Yeah. I would think maybe the gardeners and homeowners could work together to make a list of the species and just kind of track that. And,
we could identify some, there's a word for it, but a species that indicates that the ecosystem has progressed to a certain state.
Identify and list species on each property. And that could be something if they were going to have, we talked last time about having garden parties. That would be a fun activity at the garden party. So like you could say, hey, by the way, if you have a garden party, we'll do it all together so you don't have to do it yourself, right? Cool. And then like the soil carbon, is there some way you could track the carbon?
There may be. I mean, I haven't actually looked into that, because when you convert from a tillage system or a monocropping system, as we do in traditional gardening or in having just a bluegrass lawn, as you make that transition, you are going to naturally increase the soil carbon, because you're going to be improving the input from the plants into the soil, and therefore improve the soil ecosystem. And we could go the one way, which would be to have somebody that likes to get the microscope out and count the number of soil microbes. And again, we could do it the same way we were doing the birds, right? Is as you have healthy soil, and I don't know what they would be, but as you have healthy soil, you're going to get additional species participating in the system. Then I think you mentioned earlier on that there's a way that you can do a really simple test of just dissolve some of your soil in water and see how much of it is organic matter as opposed to mineral soil.
Yeah, that's super easy. You could do I'd say just jar test once a year. Once a year. Super easy. Yeah, and just let it sit. Yeah, that's easy and it's fun. You could do it at the garden party,
Sure.
And anything else?
So that's the environmental part of it, right?
Yeah. Are there any other environmental impacts you'd want to track, or just biodiversity and soil carbon?
So those are tracking what we call the health of the ecosystem.
Mm-hmm,
Right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, those are the top two I can think of, so that might be plenty.
Share that idea that, an ecosystem is not, this is a pretty landscape and this is a ugly landscape. It's this is a landscape with very few participants in it, a barren and sterile landscape, as opposed to a landscape with lots of different participants, which is a healthy ecosystem. So move our landscapes in the direction of health instead of barren and sterile.
Yeah. Okay. So the next question is, addition to that last topic, then, is how to improve those metrics, in a fun way. So we talked about like doing species count and jar test at garden parties. As you were saying that, I was like thinking it could be like a fun thing to have on the internet to like take a photograph before and after photos and then have people like count the number of differences or something.
Sure. Well, then we want to get to more detailed in terms of documentation, so that I don't have a smartphone. That I'm assuming that a smartphone can be set up to do a time and date on every photograph that you take. So that every time that you go out to do a job, you take a photograph as you start, and then another photograph when you finish at the end of the day. And then you have absolute documentation. I spent my 1 hour, 4 hours on this date. And then you can send that as a report to your client and as a report back to the cooperative. And that you could include, and then that's going to show progress in terms of the change from barren and sterile to more of a healthy habitat. So.
Yeah, and if you're having those gardeners submitting that monthly report and tracking these things like counting the species themselves, then you could make it kind of a little friendly competition and have like an award for the gardener that counts the most species or something, or increases in or I think was said last time, like just picking one particular thing and having a contest, like who can grow the biggest pumpkin.
Sure.
So yeah, just contests between gardeners of whatever type you want. Okay, that answers that question sufficiently for me. Okay, so social impacts on your workers, on the surrounding community. What might you want to track?
Social impacts, we're talking about providing food, shelter, education, health, or learning, health, belonging, and purpose. So to the extent that people are struggling in the market economy, working a dead-end job, working a job that doesn't provide everything that they need to thrive, that's what we would hope to have the gardeners experience, is access to healthier food through planting these gardens. Shelter, by having this additional source of income, then we can hopefully provide that. I keep thinking, I haven't exactly figured out how to set it in, but a lot of these homeowners are going to have extra space that they're not using once their kids go off to school, that sort of thing. And then potentially we can have some sort of a program where gardeners that are having trouble finding adequate housing we could have a program where they could move in with one of their clients and provide services and rent, both support the homeowner and the gardener. This learning about how we interact with the living things around us, that's the most important things that humans have to learn moving forward, is to how to heal our relationships with other living things if we're going to have the environmental benefits. And then the health, a lot of the chronic diseases that we're facing in our culture are strictly based on poor diet and lack of exercise. And we can address both of those. Then a lot of dissatisfaction in the culture has to do with the fact that you have to go out and get up every morning, go to a job, earn enough money. And if it's not enough money, that makes it even more stressful. And so you don't feel like you actually belong to anything. All you're doing is getting up every morning and trying to earn enough to get by. So by being a part of this effort to address these social issues, we hope to have to develop a sense of belonging and purpose in people that they might not have right now.
Yeah. So tracking, I think last time we talked about just having the gardener and the homeowner estimate how much food's being grown once a month and reporting that. And then, easy to track how much you're paying the gardeners, but if they get some other form of pay, like a place to stay or food or, whatever, kind of just tracking and reporting that as well.
Plus becoming healthier and learning a lot, and learning more gives you an opportunity for other opportunities as well.
Yeah. How would you track learning?
I'm not sure how you could, other than we could have like benchmarks, I suppose, where a brand new gardener is coming in with primarily enmeshed in the old culture. We could call it that. And as they are participating with the other gardeners and with their homeowners in learning to develop these new relationships with the living things in this space, perhaps there's some way we could develop benchmarks to measure that progress in terms of understanding their place in the system and becoming effective at being a positive force for that space.
Yeah. Maybe there's just a question on the monthly report of what did you learn?
Sure, that would work.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Anything about the surrounding community getting a benefit?
Well, so if we're going to produce a culture where there is a lack of belonging and purpose, where people don't fit in, I'm thinking that that's where a lot of the violence comes from. So if we can find a place for people to fit in the culture, feel like they belong, then I think we also address the violence. So,
is there a way to measure that?
Over the long term, as we could potentially be looking to say that this neighborhood has gardeners participating and this other neighborhood doesn't, and that there's some difference in the statistical levels of crime or something like that. I don't know. That's a long ways out for me.
Hold on. Yeah, I mean, that could just be something you do. I mean, yeah, maybe not right away, but after you've been working in a neighborhood for a while, you could just kind of look at the statistics. It shouldn't be too hard to look at. I think cities keep that kind of data on like poverty levels and crime. Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, ways to improve and gamify these. Any ideas for how to encourage these to improve? So the food, how do we encourage more food to be grown?
How do we encourage it?
Yeah.
No, I like the idea of the contests. we had talked about in terms of roles that we would want to have an ongoing development of best practices, where all of these efforts are essentially an experiment. We're going to try to put together this group of plants and see how pretty it looks, how many pollinators they attract. And then over time, as we can compare this grouping of plants as opposed to this other grouping of plants, if we're measuring that sort of thing, right, then we can say that this grouping of plants is better for this purpose than this other grouping of plants. And the same goes for, I mean, I was using the pollinator example, but companion planting, and this polyculture of vegetables is also a better polyculture than this other one because they work together they favor a better production of these particular plants, these particular outcomes. Of course, it's going to be different depending on what you're growing. If you're growing salad greens or corn, it's a different polyculture. But
yeah. So do you think you would like do a contest again of like which gardener comes up with the best new idea, the best new practice or something? Is there some other way to kind of encourage that?
And I hadn't been thinking of it. I'd been thinking about in terms of skills development. So it's going back to the learning part of it. Is that learning is its own reward, but I think you can then recognize those people that have actually done the experiments, and because of their understanding of these relationships, they're better at coming up with combinations that work better than other people.
Okay, so just recognition. So just like when you come up with a new combination, a new guild or something, put the person's name on it who came up with it or something. You'll call it the David Guild or something, right? Who come up with best practices. Yeah, so just, kind of giving credit.
Credit where credit is due.
Yeah, totally. You'll have like a book or maybe put it on a web page, list all your best practices, and just with each one you'll say who came up with it. And I mean, even if you find something on the internet, you might want to give credit to who came up with it so that other people, can look at those references and see the original for themselves or see what else that person might have done.
Right. Yeah. Encouraging contributions, encouraging new experiments, not just saying this is the formula and everybody must follow the formula. That's not how it works. That's not how it works.
Right. Right, totally. Well, and it's going to be different in Denver than it might be somewhere else where, somebody else had come up with something. So, you might go ahead and put something on there that, you think will work, and then somebody tries it and goes, actually, it works better if you do it this way. And
sure.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Just thinking. I can't come up with any other ideas. Do you have any other ideas for improving these social impacts?
No, the social impacts are a byproduct of the pattern of interactions. So then improving the social impacts has to do with sharing the message on a wider and wider basis, getting more and more people involved. So we have to track how well we're doing at our marketing and client retention and gardener retention, as we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, well, then I'd say giving some sort of rewards for recruitment. We had talked about giving like a sign-on bonus or something. But, in addition, there could be some recognition.
Sure. Well, yeah, but so that's the other one in terms of if we had somebody that was very good at recruiting homeowners, then they could get a share of the $100 for a certain period of time. And the gardener who is not so good at going out and finding clients, but is a very good gardener, I mean, that's a mutually beneficial arrangement because they can get a lot of clients without a lot of stress in terms of skills that they don't have. And then the other person gets a reward for using their skills, and they don't have to go out and dig in the dirt if they don't want to.
Yeah, totally. Okay, cool. Okay, so economic impacts. What impacts does your enterprise have on the whole economy?
Well, so I look at it more in terms of from the perspective of each individual participant. Our goal is to produce those things that we want to be abundant for ourselves. And so that lowers your cost to participate in the market economy because you don't have to earn money to buy food, for example, or if we can fit in the shelter part of it. Certainly learning, if you're going to make a career out of gardening, then we can provide that learning for you. You don't have to go out and get a degree in something. I don't think you can get a degree in what we're doing.
You can from Gaia U.
Yeah, maybe. But and of course, health is a byproduct of participating. Better diet and better and more exercise.
Yeah. There are a lot of impacts there. I mean, there's a decrease in unemployment. More economic resiliency because you're reliant on your local economy. More local circulation of money.
Lower healthcare costs for the culture.
Lower healthcare costs. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, all of these things can be measured. So you can look at statistics for the unemployment in your area. You can look at I mean, you would really only know about resiliency if there was a downturn, but you could just kind of list the effects during a downturn as far as, maybe less of a decrease in employment and whatnot. More local circulation of money, just, amount of money transferred between members of your co-op and customers.
Right. Well, so the cash coming in, we would want to invest in more capacity to produce for ourselves. So that investment is an ongoing reduction of the need to purchase things from China or the Imperial Valley.
And yeah, you could just survey your gardeners and homeowners every once in a while about their healthcare costs. Just throw a question in there like, is there any way in which you think your healthcare costs have been decreased because of this? I don't know. Not the most scientific, but you don't want to be too intrusive.
Eventually we could have a study in terms of what chronic diseases are prevalent within our neighborhoods as opposed to other neighborhoods that are still going the old way.
Yeah, that is actually a point. And we just mentioned Gaia U. So one possibility is that someone who's one of your gardeners could go to Gaia U, and their topic of study could be tracking all of these things.
Sure.
They could do an entire degree on the system and do all this for you.
Yeah,
Get
well,
college students.
Yeah, we'd love to build more relationships with the academic study side of this. So one of my pet peeves is, this is just an example, but one of my pet peeves is people who are buying the kills 99.9% of the germs, when only a very small percent of the germs are actually pathogenic. So if you kill 99.9%, that 0.1% that's still alive, that might be the pathogenic one. And now it has no competition.
Yeah.
So now you've created circumstances where you do have a problem like an E. coli outbreak in the ice cream factory. But I don't know how to talk to somebody about that, right? I don't want to say you should stop using antiseptics because potentially they set themselves up for some sort of disease. On the other hand, if we had some scientific research about how do we encourage the good bacteria and have them protect us from the bad bacteria instead of spreading toxins, I would love to have that kind of research going on all the time. So in terms of academia, if there's some way that we could make that connection and have some sort of feedback, we can provide the questions they can look at finding answers for us.
Yeah. There's a lot to be done in that area. Totally. Okay, and then just a second. I'm just curious about something. Yeah, I didn't have this pulled down far enough. The audience can't see what I'm writing. It's sad. Okay, just fixing it. Okay, we are on the very last question of this section, which is how to improve those economic impacts and gamify them, possibly. I don't know. I mean, when I think about local circulation of money, I think about alternative currencies. I don't know if that's something that could be a part of this.
Well, so there is a place. I don't think we can find a replacement for a medium of exchange, which is the dollars, or a medium of exchange, because those are the way we understand them and the way their function is a part of the market-based system. The alternative to a market-based system is a group of people that are producing things for themselves. But there is within that group of people producing things for themselves, you can still have ways to track contributions, and based on contributions gives you a different ability to withdraw from what the group produces. So I think of them as shares, but then that runs up against everybody who's anti-corporate and everything else. But you earn, by contributing to the well-being of the group, you earn a right to withdraw from the group what the group produces. And if we're producing abundance, it's not an issue, right? There's plenty for everybody, as much as you want. If there are things that are scarce, then you want to make those available to the people who've made their greatest contributions. I think you can earn shares based on the value of what you contributed, but that's a complicated and much longer discussion that we work out as we go.
Yeah, well, I've thought about those kinds of systems a lot, and I agree it is complicated, and like point systems or alternative currencies, that sort of thing. It's like a cool idea, but it is a lot of work. And it can be simple if you just you try to use it for everything. If it's just used for certain kinds of things. it might make sense. And I guess you just have to see, how this works out. If there are scarce resources, then you create a point system for it. It's just like, oh, it looks like we only have so much of this. So, for every client you have, you get one share of it or something like that. You know what I mean?
Sure. And, you can think, so let's say that the cooperative decided to buy a piece of property, and that provided the potential for 2 or 3 people, 4 or 5 people, 10 people to have a place to live.
Mm-hmm.
How would you decide which people get to live on that property if it's a cooperative asset? And so those are the issues that you'd be facing as you develop it going forward. In terms of the day-to-day, we produced so many pumpkins this year. Who wants a pumpkin? We'll have plenty of pumpkins for everybody that wants a pumpkin.
Yeah, you want to do as much as possible. Totally. Yeah. I'm just thinking if anything does come up that's scarce, that's the point where you would ask the question, is there some way we can kind of track contribution to determine the distribution of this? But yeah, you don't know what that's going to be at this point. So no point in over designing. But when you were talking earlier, the idea came up of maybe a contest for who can like decrease their consumption.
Right. What we're producing. So the lowest dollar amount spent at traditional stores.
Yeah. That could just be kind of a fun ongoing contest between whoever wants to play. It's like who's spending the least, who's simplifying their life, using the fewest resources, generating the least trash. It's like
Absolutely.
Totally just come up with a game, and whoever can give us a photo of how little trash you're throwing out this month, and whoever does the least gets this scarce resource, whatever we've got. Hey, we've got a nice shovel. Who wants it? Cool. Well, we did it.
We're at the end?
We are. We're at the end of this section. So yeah, just talking about how to measure impacts. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff that like a B Corp certification, you have to, track all of your environmental, social, and economic impacts. And, I think it's important to track some. B Corp certification is a very long list, and you have to pay at least $1,000 to them to submit a yearly report and have it, certified as a B Corp. But, that's the kind of thing that I'm coming from here, is just kind of having your little list of the things that you're tracking, at least at the get-go. So cool. We still have a few minutes, like 10 minutes left.
Okay, so let me just comment on the B Corp.
Yeah, absolutely. We can talk about whatever.
Sure. Well, so you hear that a lot, is that, cooperatives are going to save the world, or developing a new commons, or worker ownership of the business. But whatever organization you have, if your goal is to produce money in the market, to produce something for sale, then you have those same limitations as any other form of business. In terms of, you have to lower your costs and lower your price so that you have a demand in the market in order to make a profit. And the difference between a typical corporation and a B corporation is, we don't want to have to send all of those profits back to our shareholders. We want to use some of those profits for this social purpose. What we're talking about here is trying to avoid making profit. What we're trying to do is produce for self those things that we no longer have to buy through the market.
Mhm.
And and the reason why that's important is because the natural progress of the market is reducing the amount of profit available in the system. As the businesses consolidate and become more efficient, and we get more automation and mechanization, there are few places for people to participate, and the cost of the product is lowered to the point where the profit margin reduces over time. And both governments and businesses rely on that profit, because if businesses aren't making a profit, we don't have any tax revenue and we can't do any socials. If we as communities can produce those things that we want to be abundant of: food, shelter, learning, health, belonging, purpose. If we can produce those things for ourselves, then that's where resilience comes in. That's where we are not reliant on profit from the market in order to be able to continue doing what we do. So that change is something that's hard for people to follow. You know, how can that work? Because we are so embedded in the market. We measure all value in terms of dollars, but something that's abundant doesn't have a dollar value. In food in particular, that's why we subsidize farmers. They will regularly outproduce their market. There is more wheat out there than people want to buy, so we have to subsidize wheat. That's the alternative that's going to save our market, is by having an alternative for people to produce things for themselves as a community. So that's my diatribe for the day.
Yeah. And this is a good spot. I mean, these last few minutes, if there is anybody out there watching, audience, communicate. Tell us what you think about this topic. I mean, the purpose of a cooperative, you know, as far as the cooperative principles go, is to serve the members. And so it, you know, that doesn't have to be by generating a financial profit. It can be by generating goods for the members. So, you're doing that. You don't have to generate a financial profit as a cooperative to be successful. Yeah. Although cooperatives can have external investors, and sometimes they do want to generate a profit, but it's limited how much they can even pay out to those investors. So I think that's interesting. I mean, it's interesting how much money, like Crop, the company that owns Organic Valley, has been able to raise. They've actually raised quite a bit of external capital. I think Equal Exchange is another cooperative that's been able to raise external capital. You know, those are kind of a couple of the largest cooperatives that I know of that actually sell those preferred shares and seem to be fairly successful at it. But most don't, because it's kind of a pain.
And then you have to give it a share of your revenue, right?
Yeah. And you have to get approval from the SEC, and that costs like $10,000 or something. And yeah, it's not fun. Yeah. I mean, even with cooperatives, I think it's interesting because, like, technically, if you're selling shares for your cooperative, you're not supposed to, like, publicly advertise that. Like, you can publicly advertise, come become a member of our co-op, but you can't publicly advertise, come buy a share in our co-op, even though they're the exact same thing.
Sure. Although, so we're a labor-based business instead of a capital-based business. So to the extent that we're producing for our own consumption, that's what we're missing, is the additional labor. To the extent that we're producing an abundance of something that we don't have to sell in the market, then what we're looking for is to trade that for a contribution of labor. So it's I think of it in terms, it's not an alternative to the market system. It's a way to balance the market system that's going to benefit both sides of those.
Yeah. I think there's a place for, you know, even capitalism in the future. It's just that It doesn't all have to be that.
That's right. In fact, we're all gonna have trouble if we rely entirely on it, because the marginal increase in profits, or the marginal return on investments in profits, is declining. And that's, I mean, the Roman Empire had a different setup, but they had that same problem. Is what they were doing was returning less and less until they finally collapsed. So.
Yeah. Did we talk about investment shares in your co-op?
I think we talked about it briefly, but you know, I mean, I can't say that that the members, or the gardeners and cooks, might not have an investment they want to make that they would think it was advisable to bring on outside equity capital.
Yeah, no, I was talking about membership shares that the gardeners and cooks would pay, because they have to pay something. They have to actually purchase a share if you're legally a cooperative. It could be $5, but they do have to own it.
We did talk about that, and we were trying to put it more in terms of a certain amount of contribution of labor in order to earn a share.
I don't think you can do that legally, though. I mean, you can ask whatever lawyer you work with, but I think you actually have to take money. At least that was true here in Oklahoma when I was on the board of the Oklahoma Food Co-op. We could not take work trade.
Okay.
I mean, it could literally be $5. Like, it can be any amount of money. It's just, it has to be like, you know, something, and now you own a share, and now you're a member. You know, that's like the transaction. And, you know, I'm not sure, again, like a lot of that's is state to state, but I think you're even supposed to put that money in a savings account and just like put it over here, because if somebody leaves, then you have to refund it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's their investment.
Exactly.
So we could do something like $5 and complete the orientation, educational part of it.
Yeah.
To become able to do the gardening. To be able to take on clients. Yeah.
I mean, just to throw it out there, when I was thinking about starting a co-op like this, I was thinking something like that initial training. Like, I would want to give them a significant amount of training, and I would want to say, like, the money, you're going to give me this money, and I am going to actually give you a loan for the equal amount of money. And if you stay with the cooperative for a certain amount of time, then that money will just be your membership share and you can get it refunded. But if you only stay with us like for a few months and then quit, I'm going to take back this loan I gave you and keep the money. Right. To keep people from just like flipping or something. It was just an idea I came up with, but
well, it might be a valuable idea as a way to make sure that they've made the commitment.
Yeah.
And you'd want to make it more than $5.
Yeah. But yeah, because like if people come and just take your training and then leave, if it were a significant amount of training, like that would kind of suck.
So yeah, and I don't know if it's that much extensive training. It's fairly simple concept to combine the available organic matter into a new garden bed that will support a soil ecosystem.
Yeah.
But then all the rest of it, there's a lot of potential that comes with that further learning, which we want to be providing on an ongoing basis.
Sure. Yeah, it's not a lot of upfront.
Right.
Totally. And we're about out of time. But I do want to ask you this question because it came up at the end, and I'm not still fully sure about it. Like, you say you incorporate the organic matter into a bed, like a deep litter system. Like, what kinds of organic matter can you include in that without composting it? Because you said you don't have compost piles, but I'm like, I don't know if I would want to put like my slush from making bone broth like directly into my garden if I'm going to be like digging with my hands in it and might like get it on me. Like, you know, like how do you incorporate that in a way that it's going to break down quickly or not be icky, or how do you do it without making a compost pile basically?
Well, so in my system, everything goes to the chickens first. And the chickens are in a deep litter. And then when we build a sheet mulch, it's actually a combination of sheet mulch or hugelkultur. I call it a hugel mulch.
Mm-hmm.
The larger material you use, the longer the big garden bed is going to last.
Mm-hmm.
So if we put the larger material on the bottom and then add smaller material till we get to the top, trying to be careful to avoid any air spaces in there. And then depending on how deep it is, different layers of chicken manure in there to provide the nitrogen and the kickstart of a group of microorganisms to start the process.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have chickens, or if you don't have a space where you can use animals, worms would be one option, or a compost pile specific for just the table scraps, the things that would get icky.
Mm-hmm.
You need a supply of browns to go with your icky stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I'm not opposed to composting. I think it's much better if we include more processes, include the animal processes along with the plant processes.
Yeah, totally. Because like when I'm in the garden, like weeding, i.e. like pulling out some of the non-food producing plants, I just put them right back down right where they were. You know, I don't go put them on the compost pile. I just build up the mulch with whatever's trying to grow next to my other plants. But then I have a worm bin for my vegetable kind of scraps and my coffee grounds, and then I have a compost pile. I actually compost my kitty litter because I use the wheat, the kitty litter that's made out of wheat. So I've got a long-term compost pile, and so I dump any like bones and stuff like that on that long-term compost pile that I'm not going to touch for years.
Yeah, that's a good solution. We know we're not going to be didactic about this. It's, it's like I say, it's all an experiment. But we don't want to be doing that work. We want to set it up so that nature is going to do that work for us. Because then we're inviting more participation from more organisms. Plus, if you a compost pile is a bacterial decomposition, and you're going to lose a lot more of your carbon than you are if you set it up to invite fungal decomposition. That will retain a lot more of the carbon in the system and as nutrients, in fact, for the plants.
Yeah, a hot compost pile, will definitely have more bacteria in it. Whereas, spreading it out in way more with way more carbon would be more fungal. Yeah, I totally get it. Okay, I understand now.
All right, well, good.
I know what you're talking about, and we're out of time. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who is watching. And if you want to join us next time, there's a schedule on my website at Regenerative Dynamics. Actually, I just got regenerativerevolution.org. And it goes straight to my webpage, the page on my Regenerative Dynamics website that has all of this on it. So I've got all the videos on there embedded, and I've got my Google Calendar that as soon as David here or any of my clients schedules a time with me, it shows up on that calendar, so you can see all of our upcoming times. And then on that webpage, you can click to go to the YouTube, the Twitch, or the Facebook page to find where it's at. And I'll be spiffying that up soon, as soon as I have some time. But awesome. Well, thank you so much, David, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.